Good evening, everyone. My name is Oliver Maruda, and tonight I'm joined with a special co-host tonight, David Ligoff from the Whiskey Show. David, welcome, mate.
Thanks, Ollie. It's great to be here. This is really been looking forward to this. Once I saw the lineup, I was saying I had to really pull a few strings and send Emma off on some well-deserved break.
Yeah, so Emma, our usual whiskey expert and MC host of the night, she's on leave tonight. Busy moving house and doing all that fun stuff. So yeah, I've pulled in the big guns tonight, David, to help me co-host. Three of your favorite distilleries, I believe, are on the lineup.
Yes.
And you're most obviously looking forward to those not those three, I guess.
Well, see if anybody actually picks what the three are once we go through the list. But anyway, yes.
Well, there's only three named distilleries tonight, so that's probably a good bet.
Maybe I know what some of the others are.
David actually does. Well, let me post the lineup. That's probably the first thing. Where's my lovely list that I made earlier? Here we go. So we're going to kick off with a Benriach. So I forgot to say what the tasting is. It's our very last top shelf tasting of the year. The top shelf tastings are all around picking 5 or 6 very cool, often old and rare or just unattainable whiskies that we can find scouring the internet. So all 3 whiskies tonight are all themed from not the Whiskey Show based in Australia, not David's show, but the one in the UK. So the Whiskey Exchange, big retailer over there, owns the Whiskey Show in the UK. Really good group of guys and girls who run that. So if you ever get a chance, go check it out. Each year they do a batch of anniversary bottlings for the show. So hopefully you can see this. Might dim my ring light for a second there. So yeah, this is the first one, the Benriach. It's 28 years old. You can see at the top here, 10th anniversary bottling for the Whiskey Show. And we will be kicking off with a nice 48.8% whiskey. I was going to say, and a few people who joined earlier, if you do want to warm up your palate, go grab yourself maybe an ex-bourbon cask of another whiskey on the shelf, warm up the palates. Otherwise, we might just kick into the first whiskey. Good evening, Jen.
Oh, it's actually Mark anyway. I'm on
Mark,
my wife's computer.
Sorry. So there we go. I can only go off what's listed on the Zoom there. But
yeah. I was looking at it for a little while going, Jen, hang on, that's my wife's name. What the hell?
Well, thanks for joining. We're keeping it super casual tonight. It's a few apologies. But yeah, if you want to unmute yourself and ask any questions, obviously throw it into the chat or just jump in and interrupt David and I as we go. We'll obviously run the poll at the end as your favorite, and we'll tell some stories along the way. But yeah, let's kick off with whiskey number 1. David, you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, Benriach, this is a Billy Walker era, obviously even distilled before he was even involved 28 years ago when it was still owned by the Shivers guys. They pretty much had Benriach sitting there just for the blends, the Shivers blends. That's why you get all these weird casks, because they want those different cask finishes, even peated whiskies for their blends. But they also had Longmorn 500 meters down the road. So they essentially mothballed Benriach until Billy Walker bought it. He inherited 24,000 casks in the warehouse. So this is one that was sitting there at that time. And it's... we don't know what type of cask. You just look at the at the color. It could be a mix of what Billy did is he mixed ex-bourbon hogsheads a lot together. The Surge on Whiskey Fun reviewed this, gave it an 87, and at the time when this was released a couple of years ago, did we find a brilliant, more recent Benriach? I think not. And that's a big call from Surge because he tastes and reviews a lot of whiskies in his on the Whiskey Fun site. Probably one of the more fairer reviewers. So 87 is pretty high rating from Surge.
Anything over 85 is phenomenal. Anything high 90, high 80s is like exceptional, and then 90, I think 92 is the highest whiskey, and 93 is his highest score ever. So yeah, 87 is up there. I think it's one of his highest rated Benriachs from memory as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think there's one, and I can't remember which one in the lineup that is given a 90. I think I know which one it is when we get to it. I'll mention that. But this is also one of 106 bottles. Now, I have no idea how Ollie found this. 106 bottles on the planet of this whiskey. So I suspect, being 28 years old, probably a 200-liter cask maximum. A lot of angel share losses just sitting there, probably forgotten in the corner of the warehouse. But that's all they had.
I was going to just add, so we did the whiskey show Melbourne last year. Was it August, September? I can't remember.
August.
No, this year, sorry. I'm already in 2023 mode this year. And the wonderful team from the Elysium Whiskey Bar in Melbourne, who mostly focus on IBs, Yao and Kelvin, they came and they ran the Rare Whiskey Bar. And they brought some of this year's bottlings, which we'll get to, which are all these cool, funky labels. When you actually buy it, you get some 3D glasses, and each of these labels have been designed. And we tried them and they were delicious. And then I said, great, I need to buy them. There's one in there, the blend was amazing, the Ardbeg was amazing. And I was just like, how do I find them? And then, yeah, I only at auctions at crazy dumb prices. And I said, this is ridiculous. So I reached out to the Whiskey Exchange and I said, hey, we need these whiskies down here for a tasting. We're not going to hoard them. We're not going to put them on auction. We're just going to crack them open with some mates. And they said, sure, we haven't got all of them from this year's whiskey show bottlings, but can we substitute you with some of the others that were holding it? And I go, if they're as good as this year's ones, please do. And then, yeah, they pulled out this Benriach just by simply asking him, and out of a hat. I wasn't expecting it, and I saw the specs, and I checked the auction price online, and I went, yes, please, we'll have that one too. So this is a wonderful gesture from the team in the UK for just, yeah, as soon as they like to see their whiskies are open and drunk as much as we enjoy it here. So cheers to them, and it was a wonderful start to our awesome lineup tonight. What do we think of it? Thumbs up from Leo.
Oh, it's very good. Got a beautiful pineapple nose on taste.
I'm gonna
absolutely tropical fruits on the nose.
Old Benriach, same as old Glenglassaugh, goes super tropical. I think Glenglassaugh gets a little bit more tropical, but my only fault on this is the palate isn't as tropical as the nose, which is something I chase with old Benriachs and old Glenglassaughs. I got to try a 42-year-old Glenglassaugh the other couple of weeks ago, and the tropical notes carry through from nose, palate to finish. And this one's slightly drier for me, so it might be a refill Oloroso in the mix somewhere. Great whiskey though, love the nose.
The Benriach spirit is typically very sweet. That's their house style, just from the water that runs through the distillery. So this is definitely one of my favorites. Larry and I kind of stole it off Coles years ago, who were ruining the brand, and spoke to Billy and said, look, we can build your brand a lot better than a supermarket chain. So before Brown-Forman brought it, we were importing and distributing it. And not only fantastic whiskies, especially these older ones from the 70s, 80s, etc., but also a great bunch of guys just enjoying what they do.
So for those who don't know David's history before the whiskey show, he also started Australia's first dedicated whiskey shop called the Double Bay. Sorry, I've had a complete mind blank, jumping 2 sentences ahead. They're based in Double Bay, New South Wales, and I've had a complete World of Whiskey. I had a complete mind blank there. World of Whiskey. So David's exited that business now and is heavily involved in the whiskey show and helps us out at the whiskey list as well. He puts all our kits together as well. So big thanks to David, not just to this tasting, but the many. How many kits have you done this year, David? Too many sample bottles.
I don't know. I haven't done the stats for this year. I know last year did 110 virtual corporate tastings, and we packed and filled 44,500 of these little fellas.
That was the height of COVID. But yeah, part of World of Whiskey's offer was they basically go look at what the big supermarkets in Australia had and we're not serving, especially. And then they reached out to distilleries and direct and knocked on places like Tomatil from memory, some of the newer world distilleries as well. But same as Benriach, I believe you reached out to Billy and said, hey, can we import you? And you started bringing these into the country. So cheers, David, for putting the hard work in at the beginning.
Well, it's our mission to get better and better whiskies in front of you guys. It's continuing that now.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I think it's time to jump onto whiskey number 2, the 41-year-old blend. It's 46.2%. It's got an awesome label. Let me grab the one. Where is she hiding? Aurora. I have no idea how to pronounce this.
Aldehyde.
Aldehyde.
Yep.
David, do you know a little bit more about this bottle than I do?
Only that obviously the aldehydes is one of the congeners in the whiskey. That you get the esters, aldehydes, fatty acids, the kind of the theme was designed by a guy called just trying to forget his name right, Raj Chavde, who's the Elixir Distillers Creative Director, who designed the labels, and Elixir is the IB, independent bottling arm of the Whiskey Exchange. They've sold their retail arm to Pernod Ricard a couple of years ago now for a few squillion, but they kept the Elixir brands, which includes the IBs and Elements of Islay and Port Ascay as well is in that portfolio. So that label, as Ollie mentioned, you get 3D glasses. It's a technique called, first time I've seen this word, I'm going to have to use it in a sentence at least once in the next few months, an anaglyph. An anaglyph, like a hieroglyph, but it's an anaglyph. It's a technique using layered images of contrasting colors, which make the image look 3D. This is casks filled in 1980, 46.2%. They don't tell us what distillery or stable this is, being a blend, this whiskey is. So, guys, here's your chance. Take a stab.
Any guesses? I have it on pretty good authority. What this is, and more interestingly, what majority of the whiskey it is in it. It's not an even blend, which makes it even more special. Any guesses?
Very sweet, very heavily sherried.
And
That's nice.
typical of an old blend, very light finish. It's all up front.
I'm getting that stone fruit again. Maybe it's like an American sharing as well.
So kind of a
Share. I'm getting sharing American.
maybe a Macallan way.
Mm.
The Macallan, maybe.
That's one of them.
That's good.
You get that dry, tanniny finish to it.
There's 2 more distilleries in this blend. Macallan should give it away.
The
So what blend is Macallan in? That's the question.
Whatever's in my stomach usually.
Whilst we're thinking our way through the Macallan blends, it's just the pictures of this year's special releases. So the third one there, the Aurora, The whiskey that we couldn't get access to was their Ben Nevis 25-year-old. They were completely sold out of it, but we did get our hands on Ester, which we'll get to as well, and Captain Congener.
Congener, yeah.
Congener, yep. And the Phenolic Phantom, which is an Ardbeg as well, was completely gone, but they replaced it with two others in the lineup tonight, which was really generous from them as well. So yeah, those are just some really cool bottles. In each bottle that you bought at the whiskey show in the UK, you got some of those 3D blue and red glasses that we all hopefully played with as kids to see through and inspect your label basically.
So all the
Chemicals make it up.
I'm getting a real Rutherglen muscat, fruit cake on the nose. To me, it reminds me of an aged, like a 25-year-old Glengoyne, but obviously with Macallan and Glengoyne not being from the same stable, it's probably not, but that's what it reminds me of.
Gonna put them out of their misery, David.
Okay, so Famous Grouse. So Famous Grouse is it's the blend made by the Edrington Group, and they own 4 distilleries. Macallan, obviously, Highland Park, Glenturret, and Glenrothes. So generally, if you think of the Naked Grouse, which is the blended malt release, that's essentially Glenturret, Highland Park, and Macallan.
What's really cool about this release, not only is it a 41-year-old Famous Grouse, the majority of the whiskey in here, over 60% is a Macallan.
Yeah,
So
that's phenomenal.
look up the price for a 40-year-old Macallan. Yes, single cask. I know this is a blend. And this is, I think, just over $1,000 or thereabouts in that price range, whilst 40-year-old Macallans go for tens of thousands on auction. So this might be the cheapest 40-year-old Macallan plus that we ever get to try our hands on in a good way.
£230.
So I'm going to give you guys a bit of homework, which you're going to hate me for, because it means I'm sending you to buy more whiskey, which is not. If you look for the Famous Grouse 18-year-old, and yep, Famous Grouse 18-year-old pops up every now and again because they don't make it anymore. They don't put age statements on any Famous Grouse. Famous Grouse 18 is a blended malt.
That's my story of these. Benji says it.
So the 18 is a blended malt, so no grain whiskey, and it's got those distilleries in Highland Park, Macallan, Glenrothes, Glenturret, and it is absolutely fantastic. Not that expensive. If you can still find it, I don't know if it still is. I saw some pop up a few months ago, but if you can, that's certainly one to have in. If you like the style, it's one to have on the list.
Very cool. Getting a lot of that fruitcake in it, bit of ginger, that wet dampness that comes with maybe the wood in the bond store of a Dunnage bond store.
It's amazing that after 41 years, they've still got it at 46%. That's very unusual. Normally by that stage, they're close to 40.
Mm. Just add a drop of water and it just bring out more chocolate and coffee notes. Oh, I have to keep some for later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is great.
that's the evening finisher, that one. I see that, yeah. I get the chocolate with the drop of water. Well,
sometimes these really old drams, like it's always hard to pick like where in the lineup do we do it, and do we do it towards the earlier because it's a lower ABV whiskey? The next one's 57%. We obviously got this crazy dark Bunna coming up on the 4th, and then the 2 peated whiskies at the end. So we want to make sure this whiskey does justice. Obviously not position 1. It's always hard with these top shelves. Where do we line it up? But hopefully, yeah, always leave a little bit in your glass to go back to later. Was always a good tip. Whiskey number 3, a secret Speyside, codename Captain Congener, and 20-year-old at 57.6%. We've gone up in ABV quite a bit. For 20 years old and almost 60%, yeah, this is, and that color, it's just dark as.
Yeah.
It's it has to be a Glen. Being Speyside, Glen, the color, like I don't know which Glen. I think David, you know, but this Glen, whatever it is, just the nose is so inviting. So pull up the label for people to see. So yeah, nice little fun action hero Kai. How many bottles are these? Maybe it actually says here on the label. I don't think that they announced exactly how many were in their outturn. No, it doesn't say, which is a rare occurrence. But
Yeah.
the caption is "Be compounded." Thank you, Captain. Adventures and flavor. It's a cool concept. I like what they've done that year. It's not just slap their logo on it. They've gone to a bit of effort to, I think, show people not just old and rare whiskey single cask that they've acquired, but I think highlight different flavors of each of the ones that they put together. What do we think at home?
I reckon that'd be my favorite one so far, actually. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting that 41 to be, well, so far out of the ones we tried anyway, but I really like that.
I think most people in this tasting, I don't want to speak for everyone, but anything high ABV and old and Scottish, I think ticks those 3 boxes, and this definitely does.
Okay, so what Speyside, what Glen? Does it ring any bells? Any familiarity there? It's clearly fully sherry.
Something reminds me of Glenlivet, but I haven't had a lot of Glenlivets that have had this sort of age on it, so it's not something that I can really say with any conviction, but something in the nose.
Would be Glenmorangie.
We're thinking Glenmorangie.
Well, that's Highland, classified Highland. So this is a Speyside. So it's
Okay.
but Glenlivet isn't a bad. I've had some fantastic 18-year-old cask strength sherry cask Glenlivets, which have been brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But and that's big difference between Glenlivet and Glenfiddich. Glenlivet regularly do high ABV releases, but the general impression is that this isn't a Glenlivet. It's not another Glen.
What about it's richer than most Rothus I've had at this age. Family casks, Farkless.
Farkless. Too sweet.
Is it a Glen now? Are we on the right track before we lead ourselves?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, tell us, David.
It's a Farkless.
Really?
Yep.
This might be my favorite Farkless.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the problem, is that the 2025s, etc. They're just at too low ABV. It's only really at the family cask level that you're getting up there.
Yeah.
They're good value, but I think with so many other sherry bombs at higher ABV at similar prices nowadays, they've lost their competitive edge.
That's very cool. Ah. Just excited about the next whiskey.
Probably one talking about Glenfarclas, probably one of the most disappointing whiskies I've ever had was a 58-year-old Glenfarclas. It was years ago, sharing some whiskies actually in Israel with one of the bloggers, a guy called Gal Gronov, one of the early whiskey bloggers, and he had got sent over as a sample, and it was just like chewing on the staves. It was completely overcooked.
Oh,
It was an example of how you can just leave whiskey in a cask for too long.
don't tell me that, because I've got a date with a 1964 Glenfarclas Family Reserve in the mash tun in 18 months' time. My 60th birthday.
hopefully,
grab it?
it was an isolated case, but you know, not all casks are the same.
I was given a 50-year-old
Let us know there.
50-year-old Glenfarclas for my 50th. And it was the most disappointing thing I've ever tasted in my life. It was also so overcooked, it was unpleasant. It cost an absolute fortune for this poor guy. I couldn't tell him to his face. That's how bad it was. Hope he's not watching this video sometime.
You could nose this whiskey forever.
So for that age and what it is, it's actually got pretty good balance. Not too dry on the finish, which I often get from these sherry casks.
That's why I said I thought it was too sweet to be again Glenfarclas. So.
It's a bit short on the follow through afterwards. There's it just dissolves away though.
All right. Should we kick on to the Bunna?
Yeah.
So whiskey number 4. Where are you hiding? It's another one of these 2022 Whiskey Show exclusives called Ester Elektron. The Realms of Eternity and Beyond. 19-year-old Bunna. Distilled in 2001, bottled in late 2021, and bottled at 54.3%. So actually put the last two whiskies together, and you can see the Bunna edges out only just in terms of darkness, but these are both quite nice dark sherried whiskies.
Oh.
But not a sherry bomb on the nose at all.
I'm getting soapiness on the nose.
There's a bit of toffee apples on this. Well, that's quite savory.
Oh, the taste is unbelievable.
I was expecting sweet.
Yeah, it's not that sweet.
It's creamy, it's savory, it's getting spiced fruit cake a little bit.
Oh, you can almost chew it.
It's delicious.
I was not expecting that. That is yeah, they've delivered the brief on different flavors per bottle so far.
I don't think I would have picked this as a Bunnahabhain. If you give it to me blind.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Leo, you were at our last tasting where we did the Bunnas, and they all had a distinct distillery profile. This, on the other hand, yeah, I agree with you. It sits outside the bell curve.
Yeah.
Almost a cola taste.
Actually, I remember that one. Yes.
And
It tastes
Yeah, the super premium tasting we did mid-year with that 40-year-old Bunna that looked like Coca-Cola. I mean, that was outside of the bell curve as well, but this is in the other direction. As you say, savoury. Oh, wow.
It's like organic cola, not or like McDonald's Coca-Cola syrup, not actual Coke.
Yeah, that's something special. I don't know whether 2 or 4 so far has been my favourite.
That's going to be a very divisive poll tonight. I love the nose of the Benriach. The blend, I think it's one you got to sit on for a while to really enjoy the family cask in disguise. There is delicious, but this is like, yeah, chewy. Wow.
Oh, wow.
I do have some very good news to share. I don't have all the whiskies tonight, but I do have 3 of them, and only I think 1 or maximum 2 bottles of each. So Chris has kindly, he wanted to put it up on the website ages. I said, let's try it and then share it with you guys who've done the tasting. So you guys have first dibs. It went live 32 seconds ago. And we won't talk about it until tomorrow anyway. So you got a little bit of time to have a stop and think about it. The prices, they're pricey for what they are. At the same time, they're not crazy because these are IBs. And the whole point of the whiskey show, as David will attest as well, whether it's UK, Australia, or even some of the other big festivals around the world, they're not there to just jack up the price. They're not auction houses. They're about getting really good whiskey in front of people to drink and enjoy. So that's kind of the ethos is global and universal in that stance. Hopefully not speaking too out of line, David, there.
No, exactly right. And it's and this is something that we've actually probably prompted by, once we started looking at the list, is for next year, the shows. Yeah, we've got our kind of main whiskey show exclusive, which is the Glendronach single cask, the 10-year-old Oloroso. But we're encouraging more and more distilleries to come to the party to do special whiskey show releases, exclusives, like the whiskey show in the UK. Not just have one, but have various ones that are exclusive to the whiskey show. Not huge numbers, but just ones that you can't get anywhere else.
And not to dismiss your Glendronach, but it is potentially one of the last club or group releases of a single cask Glendronach. They're focusing more towards regions, so it's 60%, 10 years old, 2012 bottling. When have you seen a 60% single cask Glendronach at under $200 as well? So well done on securing that one. That is a fantastic whiskey to finish your series of 3 on.
And it took 4 or 5 years of work, that's all.
Thank you for the link. I've made a purchase already.
Oh, mate, well done. Like I said, we barely got any. To make shipping, to make the cost of whiskey cheaper, we try and bring as much whiskey per shipment as possible to economies of scale. So yeah, to just bring both the cost of the whiskey and the cost of the tasting down, I said, hey, let's have you got any others left over to sell? And they go, we got a couple. So yeah, that's what they sent us, and you guys have first dibs. So well done on grabbing that one. Whiskey number 5. What have we got? It, David. You got the honors of this one. I can tell this might be something of interest to you purely because of what's happening in the background there.
This shoulder, yes.
What are we drinking?
So the 18-year-old Ardbeg. This was another one of the 10th anniversary releases. Now that was, I recall that the 10th anniversary was the 2020 Whiskey Show, which was only virtual. Which might have been a reason why we've actually been able to get some of these, because people weren't on hand to actually take them away from the show.
Before you jump into the palate, I've just nosed whiskey 5 and 6 together, and the contrast is so unique. It's very cool. Like they're both peated, smoky, but like
Yeah.
Unpack that. One's very meaty. It's like almost mortlock meatiness.
Mm.
So 55.9%. Doesn't seem like just an ex-bourbon cask. It's a bit fruity for that. But Ardbeg don't generally do finishes. You look at Igadel, Corryvrick, and they're all 100% either sherry or port. Could be a refill.
225 bottles in this outturn as well. So their standard whiskey show label. Apologies for the glare. Hopefully you can see. There we go.
Now this to me is just the finish is unmistakable. Ardbeg. It just keeps going. Now we describe these kind of whiskies is that when you wake up tomorrow morning and brush your teeth, you'll still be tasting it.
I'm not getting a lot of peat on the palate. I'm getting on the nose and on the finish, but not so much on the palate.
Well, yeah, it's the peat's all in the finish.
Have we all had like an older Ardbeg or Lagavulin or Lafroig recently, like a 20-year-old plus? For me, the biggest difference, I guess, with IB Islas versus your sort of OB Bottlings and Lafroig's the easiest to talk about is the peat just disappears the older the whiskey is, and it like slides off a cliff and then is not there, and which is great because you get to try some other cool tropical ex-bourbon flavors and whatnot, but the peat retains in this. Yeah, it's all in the finish, but I really enjoy it. It still has meat and bones on it.
Well, 18 is still okay, and this is one of the it's almost one of the myths of Port Ellens, is that these older Port Ellens that they release annually, less and less of them, stupid prices, and they're all crap. Because Port Ellen peaked in the mid-20s, 23 to 25 years old. You had the balance of the distillery character and the peat. Over than that, and the 30+ year ones, there's no peat at all. They're not bad whiskies, but certainly not $5,000-$10,000 whiskies. But this one, I just love the finish on this.
What was this one? 55.9. Yep. I'm just looking up on Whiskey Base because I know this was very popular at the time. It's got 46 votes and it's scored 90.1 out of 100.
Yeah,
So,
this is the one that this was, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people loving this.
That's for Whiskey Base. It's really high.
Yeah, anything over 90 is top 1%. It can't, like, there has to be some sherry or I don't know. It's not ex-bourbon to me.
No, it's not expert. I think it's a refill sherry.
Just reading the comments really quickly. Yeah, most people are calling it out, saying there's refill sherry or something else in the mix there.
I'm not a fan of young Ardbegs, but this could convert me as a older Ardbeg.
Yeah, I'd second that. Actually, I feel the same.
I think the only Islay distillery that does excellent young whiskies is Kalila. I've had some fantastic kind of 6-7-year-old IBs like Provenance Kalilas, almost clear, almost a Chardonnay color, but they are fantastic. But yeah, I don't know what it is, but look, there's nothing wrong with the I think it was one of the better new releases, the Ardbeg Wee Beastie as a 5-year-old, but that's because of the sherry cask influence. I think that they've got it right with that one, but other than that, that's an anomaly.
So as amongst friends, not a rant, just highlighting the value of where IBs sit in the market, and as collectors, as whiskey drinkers, this is where you find real gems. If you got this at RRP at the show for whatever year it came out, I can't remember.
2018 was it?
2018. I think it was like £299 or something. You can buy some at auctions. Whisky Exchange has it for £550 currently, last in the market. Whisky Exchange is saying the average is €604. The Australian exclusive single cask, which was bottled at 46 or 48%, 46, I think, it's $940. And yeah, cool. It's an Ardbeg OB, and you know, that's, you can't compare OBs and IBs, but at the same time, value for money in terms of whiskey drinking and chasing some really cool gems. Like, this is why we go after IBs. This is why we do these tastings, because I think you do find some really cool whiskies, and you know, we're about to compare two Ardbegs at really high ABVs side by side at similar ages as well, but bottled at different years, and like, where else in the world can you get access to great whiskies if it's not through IBs on this caliber? That's kind of my point.
The only problem with RBs is that some of them are really good and some of them are really bad. And you have to taste each individual barrel. And that's the issue. You don't know what you're buying until you've tasted it, or which stage it's gone.
It's why you end up with, like, I like diversifying, and I agree, but you then end up like picking a few IBs that you follow like religiously, and you know, like we did the North Star tasting a few weeks ago, and we did Infrequent Flyers, and for anyone who didn't know, the guy who runs Infrequent Flyers is Billy Walker's son. So when you get to meet these IBs, you get to talk about it. We get Angus from Decadent Drinks Whiskey Sponge on, the Thompson brothers guys. You meet these IBs and you get to follow their palates, and you get to, if it aligns with your palate, then you get to at least take a slightly better punt. But yeah, right, I agree with you, mate. You got to try them, a lot of them, before you buy.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult with most of my single barrels and 200 bottles. And
I think before we really started these top shelf tastings, like having access to IBs at bars like Whiskey and Element and Elysium, to an extent, you know, sometimes Baxter's or Borough Bar in Sydney, Haynes and Co in Adelaide, have got a few as well occasionally. So, you know, the IBs are starting to get more ranged in other bars in Australia, but it's slim pickings, and you know, it's another reason why we do this, just to try this stuff.
And it's you got to be lucky, because you got the resources like Whiskey Base, like Whiskey Fun, who do fantastic impartial reviews. But the problem is you have to wait for the guys to review it, and then by the time you get to it and you do like it, then you just got to be lucky to draw whether they're available still.
By the time they get to Australia, it's they're done.
Yeah.
All right. Do we like that one? Yay or nay?
I loved it.
Yeah, I did like that one too.
I'm biased, but yeah, that's.
George and Doogie, super quiet from you guys, but thumbs up, thumbs down. If you get a chance, let us know what you guys think.
Sorry, guys, I'm really not feeling well, so I'm going to reserve the tasting. And one of my mates who is meant to be doing this with me is stuck at work, so we've rescheduled for the weekend. So hopefully, I'm just watching the video, and I'm going to do this live with my mates who can't join. But Yeah.
Sorry to hear you're unwell, but
Yeah.
have a shot of Ardbeg, maybe Ardbeg 10 to get started. That might clear things up.
Well, I've got a wee beastie on the go, so that's not a bad way to clear the sinuses either. So that is one of my go-tos. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, thanks for joining, mate. On
Yeah.
that note, let's dive into whiskey number 6.
The one thing if you visit the Ardbeg distillery, the one accompaniment for Ardbeg that they recommend is Maltesers. that maltiness of the Malteser complements the maltiness of the especially the ex-bourbon cars like the 10-year-old. But you got to there's a technique. You can't just pop a Malteser in your mouth. Pop a Malteser in your mouth, crunch it, break it open, while it's in your mouth. Take a sip of the Ardbeg, filter it through the malt of the Malteser, and that's how you get the best effect.
Is that like the Aussie Tim Tam in coffee kind of vibes?
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't know why, but and I've never had it, but I think I fancy Ardbeg and freshly shucked oysters.
Now
To me, I think
is,
that would, with the some of the maritime saltiness sort of qualities, the oysters might go well.
now you say that. I had the privilege of visiting the distillery years ago, and you walk up from the distillery up the hill through the sheep paddocks to one of their water sources, which is called Igadale. That's where the name comes from. It's the name of it's a lake, and it runs through channels down into the distillery. And we walked up to the distillery, and with Jackie, they visited the manager, and there was just a guy on a kind of quad bike with a flatbed at the back, quietly sitting there next to the water. And as we got closer, we noticed what he was doing was shucking oysters. And then pitch up there were, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us, stand around the flatbed of the quad bike, taking a bit of the Igadale, pour it on the oyster. Off you go, freshly shucked, grown in Igadale, the water source of Ardbeg. So absolutely, 100%.
I just shared a link. Very important research I think I did during lockdowns was I got all my Ardbegs out. I bought 3 different kinds of oysters, and then I divided everything in half. So half a dozen oysters. I poured the whiskey from each Ardbeg over the top, and then the other half I did the oyster fresh, and then I did a shot of or a nip of Ardbeg afterwards. And yeah, I did a very quick video and a post about it. But yeah, the classic Ardbeg 10 works really well. For some reason, when you get a creamier oyster like St. Helens or Pamblo Marimberlin from New South Wales, the Anoa worked really well. The Dark Cove, I don't know, it just didn't connect. But yeah, I think the Dark Cove and Coffin Bay from memory. I need to rewrite the article because it was a couple of years ago, but reread the article. But yeah, highly recommend it. It's a very fun activity. Grab your peated whiskies. The Lagavulin 8, the slightly one over the 16 works really well as well. Lefroy 10, I think, just beats the others like Select or Quarter Cask or whatever else is out there. Just the normal 10. So I think you're all around the classics, the 8 and the 2 10s from the Islers with any good Aussie oyster. That's my jam at least.
I haven't seen that. I haven't looked at that guide. I've read some of the guides on your site, but I haven't read that one. So maybe that's a Christmas, New Year job for me.
Please, give it a go and let us know.
The other accompaniment, which I call the Holy Trinity, is a sherry peated one, like the Dark Cove mentioned, Dark Cove, or the Ardbeg Black, or Igadale, or Corryvreckan, as a chaser. Before you drink the whiskey, you take a chocolate brownie and blue cheese, like a Stilton, a creamy blue, almost like a sandwich, equal parts brownie and blue cheese. You've got to get past the texture, but yeah, this is the challenge. Pop it in your mouth, brownie blue cheese, chase it with the sherry peated whiskey. It's a flavor explosion in your mouth. And even if you don't like, even for people who don't, because when I do whiskey and cheese presentations, we finish off with this. Even people that don't like blue cheese agree that this is worthwhile.
That is fantastic. I've got my main whiskey drinking mate's a big fan of blue cheese, so there's something I can try with him.
Another interesting one I did. There's a restaurant both in Sydney and Melbourne called Mjolnir. It's a Viking restaurant, and they do the bone marrow loo. So you eat the bone marrow out of the actual bone itself, and they toast it and pour Highland Park 12 down the bone marrow into your mouth. And that adds this toasty, fatty, meaty quality to Highland Park, and it is absolutely incredible.
I think that what we're hearing here is that it's all about just being unconstrained in terms of your experimentation. Some things will work, some won't. But it's not brain surgery. If it doesn't work, shelve it, move on. There's nothing as such as a complete failure. It could always serve as a bad example.
Oh, look, one of my favourite pairings with a sherried whiskey, not a peated sherried whiskey, but just a sherry bomb, is dried apricots.
Oh, yeah.
Dried apricots and sherried whiskey. Wow.
You were one of the first Ardbeg embassies as well in Australia as well at World of Whiskey, David. So you've been following this distillery for a while.
Yeah, we're the first retail outlet as an embassy. There were a couple of bars and us. We're the first retail one. Yeah.
Out of those two last drams, are they equal favorites? Is one nose better than one palate? Like, how do we judge and compare? And if you have to pick one,
Nose of the 18, palate of the 20,
Pallets of the 20.
and they're both good. Probably the 20 might edge it out.
Yeah, the 20's
I think the 20's got that stronger Ardbeg, traditional Ardbeg taste.
I think the palate of the 20 and the finish of the 18.
actually.
anyone gonna blend them?
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Didn't save enough to blend them.
As
Take one for
David,
the team.
as David's doing some very important experimentation there.
David's got a whole bottle to play with though.
This last one that we're drinking, a few people online have rated this both like 90 out of 100, 90 out of 100, 91 out of 100. So yeah, it's what are we drinking? 57.2%, 247 bottles in the outturn, 20-year-old bourbon cask. And yeah, it is what it is. It's got a little bit of medicinal in it. It's got a decent amount of tar and peat, that fresh sea spray vibe that I love about this distillery. And balance of vanillas, milk chocolates, all the good stuff you want from an old Ardbeg.
That's
Got a little bit of that Isla rum.
That's the one. The blend is that's it. That's the pick.
Now
It's got a little bit of that Isla iodine,
it-
sort of betadine, Band-Aid sort of on the nose, the last one.
Mixing them together, just extend that finish of the lot. I'm gonna have to rebottle that and keep it for later.
I'll do that offline after we finish.
I've been incredibly slack, so I'm going to very quickly type up the poll. David, tell us that joke now. Well, tell us your favorite distilleries. You hinted at where are they at?
Well, for different reasons. I've already mentioned that I've got a soft spot for Benriach, not only because of the style, but because of the people involved. The old days, guys like Billy Walker, the brand ambassadors, Stuart Buchanan, Dougie Cook, just fantastic guys. Just a love for the industry and the life. Stuart's been in the industry forever and started out literally on the as a stillman and shoveling peat on Mull, and worked his way all the way up through the industry. Bunnahabhain, for obvious reasons, it's Bunna, and never had one that I didn't like. And then Ardbeg, my favorite Islay distillery. Just there's better ones and worse ones. Some of the recent limited releases and Ardbeg Day releases that have been from reviews have been hit and miss. But because the problem with Ardbeg is that they hit a peak early with Iggedale, is that everybody references every new Ardbeg release against Iggedale. They've completely screwed themselves.
That is a fair point. And yeah, I think we're all a little bit sometimes too harsh. Yes, there's a big marketing department, and they're pushing, it's hard, it's competitive out there. They're not just they've got a loyal following, which sometimes they forget, but they're competing against some of the biggest distilleries in the world, and they're a business, and they gotta drive sales at the end of the day. So I understand both sides of the fence that they're pushing, but yeah, if they can find classic peaty monsters from Ardbeg, and the most recent one that's come out, I think has redeemed themselves quite a lot in personally my books. As being a committee member and collecting each release, it's great to see them pushing boundaries again. David, Hypernova, yay or nay while we're on the topic?
Nay for me.
Anyone else tried it while we're on it tonight?
No.
No, we'll have
I think
to.
that series was best with the early ones, the 2009, 2010s.
That's
Even though-
unfair to compare with. Apart from you, who else has them open? So I do keep hinting about it. We've just run out of time this year. We did want to get someone cool from Ardbeg, but we are going to do a top shelf tasting of Ardbeg, mostly David bottles. I've basically been begging him, teasing him, and one day a few months ago, I just walked in and just started grabbing bottles of the shelf, and I said, "Can we drink this one? Can we drink this one?" And he's like, "Yay, nay, don't touch it, go away. I'm going to shoot you. Yes, you can have that one." So thank you for David for sponsoring that next tasting. You are most welcome to join.
Thank you. That's very kind. No bottles. But one thing that, and I said this at our whiskey champs, is that what COVID has taught us is that, and I quote one of my favorite philosophers, life is what happens while you're making other plans. Is that we've all got these bottles that we put aside for a special occasion, which never happens. It never comes. You just got to live the moment. And that's a quote, by the way, by John Lennon in one of his songs. And that whether it's the overseas trip, the good whiskies, the meeting up with people and friends, that's we just got to do it, because next week, next month, who knows what's going to happen? We never may have those opportunities again.
Yeah, I was interested when our last tastings, Emma said, when you buy an expensive bottle of whiskey, you put it aside for a special occasion. You never know when to open it. My philosophy is, after 6 to 12 months on the shelf, you may know how much it costs, but that's no longer important, because you've gone on and you bought more and more bottles. So, whether it cost you $70 or $400 or $800, that bottle of whiskey, when you get it to open it, drink it and enjoy it.
Yeah, Howard, and you've kind of preempted me, Howard. Is that obviously with these kind of things, and you guys have been to a lot of our events. If you have any suggestions of top shelf tastings or any theme tastings, please send it to us. We're always keen to look at new ideas, new things. We've got our lists, and the one that I do it for corporate events, which actually is great fun, is a blind tasting of blends versus malts. And be surprised how few people get them all right. Six whiskeys, 3 blends, 3 single malts, and very few people, in fact, 1 in 20 generally get the lineup right. But any ideas of themes, etc., always open to them.
That would be fun with some corporate snobs that think they know their whiskey.
Well, that's and again, this is all really where we're coming from. Is the one of our kind of taglines is taking the wank out of whiskey. Now, get past the marketing hype, the bullshit, whatever you're told by the distilleries, by the big brands. If you like a whiskey, you simply like it for how it's presented to you. Don't be influenced by a label, an age, a country, whatever else. Similarly, if you don't like a whiskey, it doesn't matter how many awards it's won, you're still not going to like it.
Leo, I know we talked about it last tasting, Howard, and I think Mark, possibly you were there as well from memory. We're going to do some sensory palate explorations next year as well. We don't know what we're going to call the series, but let's dive into the world of Oloroso Sherry, Pedro Jimenez, Manzanilla. Like we talk about these finishing casks all the time, and they shine through our top shelf tastings, but like let's go back to the base, the core range, and let's do something cool that actually explores the world of PX casks, and let's put some new Aussie PX against some really old PX, and then actually try some PX, and is it, what's the goon version of PX in Spain versus the top quality, and I think surely there has to be some difference. I've not had enough exposure, so purely for my own education reasons, I love this stuff. I'm curious. I'm sure everyone here would be interested in something like that. So yeah, we're gonna.
That sounds good. I'd like to do that too.
That sounds brilliant.
I don't know what it's going to be called, David. I haven't really pitched the idea apart from I think we always brainstorm stuff, but we'll come up with some name. It won't be called master classes or something wanky like that. It'll be Sherry with David or something fun. So we'll get there.
Because the whole thing is also, especially a lot of the younger whiskey drinkers who love sherry cask matured whiskies have never drunk a sherry.
Yeah,
they would not know the difference between a Fino, an Oloroso, a Pedro Jimenez, a Manzanilla, a Amontillado. So we have the whiskies matured in those casks and the sherry itself. That's where we're going, is kind of deconstructing the matured red. And also, and it was only recently that I actually noticed on a Macallan classic cut, the one that everybody kind of lusts after and drools over. On the bottle of the Macallan classic cut, it says sherry seasoned oak. Now we know that most sherry casks nowadays haven't had sherry maturing in them for decades, and they use that for whiskey. They literally put sherry in it for a few months or a couple of years, chuck it out, use it as vinegar essentially, and then put the whiskey in it. So it's a very light seasoning. And so again, does it make such a difference? Compare that, a sherry seasoned cask, to a proper sherry cask. Doesn't make that much difference. Is it better? Is it worse? I know a distillery like Cavallan, they used to use proper European oak sherry casks for their whiskies, and found that with that hot climate, it was too much. They went to American oak sherry seasoned casks, and there was a lot more balance in their releases. So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that's worth exploring. Don't be, but a knee-jerk reaction, oh, how can they do that? It's not real sherry. Well, they're all doing it. Must be something in it.
David, maybe for something like that, if you actually send out a sample of the sherry as well, so buy a bottle of each of the
Exactly,
sherries.
that's it. That's the plan.
That's what we mean, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
taste the sherry, taste the whiskey with the sherry at the same time. Yeah.
No, that's the idea. Yeah.
The other thing I noticed, there's been a series of releases from independent bottlers, and I think they're from an Australian distillery, where they've gone, this was a 30-year-old sherry cask or a 25-year-old sherry cask, And, if you've had sherry in a cask for 30 years and you pour whiskey in it, the activity of the wood has been worn out over that 30 years. The influence of the wood has been reduced, despite the fact it's had sherry in it for 30 years. It doesn't mean that if you finish a whiskey in it for 6 or 12 months, you're going to have the same effect as a cask that's only had a sherry in it for 5 or 6 years, and the wood's still quite active and fresh. So that there's so many differences, and the marketing that some of these guys do, it's frankly misleading.
Ask them how long that whiskey was in that actual 80-year-old cask.
That's right.
I know what you're talking about.
3 months, 6 months,
Yeah, nothing.
But because it's been in there for 3 months, 6 months, but they don't tell you that, and it's not even in the fine print, but they say it's been using a cask that's 60 years old or something, and it's like, that is, yeah. Misleading is an interesting term. Whiskey in Australia, with our loose laws, and I've talked about this many times before, I think we're going to have to go through a few rounds of iteration, similar to the whole Nance story. Other things are going to have to change in terms of liquor labeling laws. I don't know where it's going to go. It's going to be interesting to watch. All we can do as consumers is to educate ourselves, to continue the community and the conversations, and make smart decisions.
Oh, look, there's all sorts of things with Australia. One of the Australian distilleries I've dealt with, they like to go how many summers old the whiskey is rather than how many years old, because summer they get storms and massive changes in air pressure in their warehouse, which compresses and expands the oak and ages the whiskey quicker. And a friend of mine today just showed me some pictures of Warbs Bay Distillery in Tasmania, literally on the edge of the Tasman Sea. It is literally on the coast, and the air pressure changes those guys would get, it'd be phenomenal. Their whiskey would age so much differently to other maritime distilleries anywhere in the world.
So yeah, is that McHenry's or Phoenix?
I'm not sure. It's in Swansea in Tasmania, Warbs Bay.
Warbs, yep. Yeah. The new guys down there. So he's ex Overeem, one of the guys there. Similar thing. Cam Brett from Spring Bay. He's got 2 distillery locations. One at the airport next to Sullivan's Cove, and actually at the coast at Spring Bay. A little bit closer than Wobbs. Wobbs is about an hour and a half drive north of him, but he's pretty much Glasshouse Bay, and he's maturing 2 100-litre sherries, bourbons, and port as an experiment. They're identical. They were distilled the same days. He's just put them for 5 years on both locations to see what the difference is, even being an hour drive apart. Because Tasmania is so versatile and diverse in terms of its maturing qualities. And
both of those would virtually be at sea level, but one is literally on the coast and the other one is a little bit inland. I mean, I'm a Hobart boy, born and raised, so familiar with the area, and very keen to see how some of these places develop.
For example, Sullivan's Cove, the ABV goes up because of the humidity difference between McHenry's just across the bay, where it goes down. They're literally kilometers apart, but different climatic conditions.
Just before we can kick on a little bit and chat, I will just share the results, and then I'll stop the formal recording. So we have a tie tonight. We haven't had ties all year, and it's only the last 3-5 tastings has been ties every time. So the 41-year-old blend, the Macallan famous grouse blend, is equally tied with the 19-year-old Bunna, followed by the first whiskey, the Benriach, which is very cool. And then following that in equal third place is both the family casks, the Secret Speyside from Glenfarclas 20-year-old and the Ardbeg 20-year-old. And just because I said top 1 and 2 whiskies, unfortunately, everyone else voted not for the 18-year-old Ardbeg. I quite liked it, but I agree. I'd pick the last Ardbeg, the 20-year-old. Yeah, I don't know, just works slightly better. One last note. I went back to all of them after I had the peated whiskies. The 41-year-old blend shines. Like, it doesn't matter if there's peat on your palate. It's a whole different class, and I think that's the quality. Like, these are all 18 to 20-year-old whiskies, and then you go to something that's 40-year-old plus, and it doesn't matter if you have a little bit of peat. It just, yeah, for me at least, it sings, and I think that's the magic of such a cool whiskey like that. So officially signing off for tonight. Thank you all. Our last top shelf tasting. They will be back next year. We have one more virtual tasting next week. Manly Spirits. Otherwise, yeah, thank you guys all for joining. Have a wonderful Christmas, great New Year, and we'll see you in the next year. Great to see that bottle open and half drunk already. I will pause the recording there and we can kick on for a bit. Cheers, guys.
That was our warm-up shots.